Thank you, Dave. And thank you, RBFF, for your continued partnership. And I also want to just thank all of the members and all of our industry partners for being here at the industry breakfast this morning. And most of all, I'd like to thank both Informa Markets, our partners, our long-term strategic partners in building this unified event here, as well as an important collaborator and supporter of that combined event, which is the International Yacht Brokers Association. Paul Flannery, thanks for your support of what we've been able to do here. It was critical. You know, there is so much to celebrate this year. We're back in Miami after being disrupted last year, and the Discover Boating Miami International Boat Show has become the largest boat show in the world. The industry is healthy. Many in the audience right now are experiencing record years. Order books are very strong, as much as 12 months, even further out. And consumers are showing a very sustained and high interest in boating. The other thing to celebrate is the outdoor recreation economy as a whole is growing and is strong. It's 600, BEA just measured this past year in 2020 numbers, and it was 689 billion in economic impact in the country. 4.3 million jobs, 3% of U.S. employment comes from outdoor recreation, and almost 2% of America's entire GDP comes from the sector. And the single biggest driver of America's outdoor recreation economy is in this room. It is the recreational boating and fishing sector. Now, in BEA's own words, when they were unveiling their report, they said, "We almost single-handedly held up the 2020 outdoor recreation economy with 30% growth, far outpacing the growth in other sectors like RV, hiking, camping, any of the other lifestyle activities." And last Friday, the White House and the Department of Interior announced a record $1.5 billion investment in state fish and wildlife conservation and outdoor recreation spending and investments around conservation and other areas. Dollars that were funded primarily by the boater fuel tax and user fees, license fees, and industry excise taxes. Now, another reason to celebrate is the strong economy, the strong jobs market, and wide credit availability in the country, which continues to fuel growth. And yes, we certainly have some headwinds right now with inflation, with gas prices, and supply chain disruptions. But overall, and for the time being right now, our key indicators are all sound. And there are more reasons to be optimistic right now, because for the second year in a row, we have eclipsed 300,000 new boats. First time in over 15, the top two levels in over 15 years. And when we add in the pre-owned boats, there were approximately 1.45 million boats sold in 2021. A large portion of that is to first-time buyers. And the consumer interest and demands for boating are continuing to be at near record highs. And this is an interesting chart. This chart shows Google's searches for how to buy a boat increased twofold during COVID. But what's really interesting, and I think it's important for this industry and this audience to know what drove these interests, those two main spikes, the one in April of 2020 and the one in February 2021, those directly coincide with the federal relief checks that were sent to American taxpayers. We're also seeing record engagements online and across our social media channels. Dave just gave a big example of what he's seeing at RBFF, and we're seeing the same thing in Discover Boating. And we optimized our social media approach during this time and continued our Get On Board partnership with RBFF and MRAA, which generated incredible results. The 1 billion in PR impressions, plus 73% in social media engagements compared to pre-pandemic. Same thing in increased traffic on Instagram, as well as the 3.4 billion impressions for the Get On Board campaign, which is just astronomical numbers. We also saw During this time, record manufacturer referrals from Discover Boating and greatly increased activity in terms of Discover Boating's boat show portal, where people are searching boat shows and where they can go see these products, as well as the loan calculator and the educational tools, which all realized outstanding online growth. Now, on the all-important advocacy front, outdoor recreation, especially recreational boating and fishing, is one of the few remaining areas that's seeing any progress at Congress or achieving any bipartisan agreement. Every American, when you think about it, supports a high quality of life. We're the quality of life industry. We are the pursuit of happiness industry. We're in the founding documents, for the love of God. And so what's critical right now is for us to really be able to drive that growth through our advocacy and help us maintain that growth. One of our top priorities has been to make sure that we are improving access across the nation and protecting access across the nation so that we can continue to expand the boating lifestyle industry at a time when so many consumers are heading our way. Now, under both President Trump as well as President Biden, NMMA and our partners across conservation, but most importantly in the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, have achieved historic investments in improving infrastructure and access. The first started during the last year of President Trump, and he signed this law into legislation, was the Great American Outdoors Act. And it provided historic funding in terms of addressing the $9.5 billion in backlog maintenance. And those dollars are appropriate, and they're now being spent, and we're trying to find ways to make sure that they get driven directly into the greatest needs of the marine industry. It also guaranteed $900 million in the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is permanent funding, a fund that often was taken away and stolen for other purposes, and now it's permanent because of that legislation. During the first couple of months of the Biden administration, we saw a historic access expansion across all of our national fish and wildlife refuges, which opened those to boaters, fishermen, as well as hunters. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, which you've heard a lot of, it was $1 trillion. We were able to get in there historic investments in boats, in ports, in waterways, in climate resiliency for when storms might destroy a marina and we have to rebuild it, and access and ramps, or to make sure places like Utah, which right now are seeing marinas go high and dry, we're able to move those with those dollars. Really critical investments, as well as the Sport Fish Restoration and Boating Trust Fund, which not only funds RBFF, but much of the conservation for fisheries around the country. And finally, we worked very closely with the Commerce Department to achieve the full removal of the highly punitive EU 25% retaliatory tariff on American-made boats. Europe is back open for the American boat builder, and it's the second largest and most important market after the United States. So phenomenal job by the advocacy team in this area. Now, the U.S. Department of Commerce is an important federal agency for NMMA members. They house the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is commonly known as NOAA, which manages our ocean fisheries. They house the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which measures outdoor recreation and the outdoor recreation economy, and it shows how much we contribute annually and compares us to other industry sectors, and that drives a lot of policy decisions. And it also leads the U.S. trade negotiations with other nations. Now, Secretary of Commerce and former governor from Rhode Island, Gina Raimondo, she led the U.S. efforts to remove the retaliatory tariffs, and we invited her to share a few words with you by video today.
Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. First, I'd like to recognize NMMA President Frank Hugelmeyer and the entire team for organizing this great event. I'd also like to offer my congratulations to all of today's award winners. And then I'd like to update you on the work we are doing here at the Commerce Department to support your businesses. The Biden administration has prioritized the revitalization of our manufacturing economy. It's one of the reasons I said yes when President Biden asked me to join his team. Everything we're doing here at Commerce is designed to achieve one overarching goal: to improve America's economic competitiveness so that our workers and companies can succeed in the global economy. That's why we were thrilled last fall to announce an agreement with the EU to modify the 232 steel and aluminum measures to allow the resumption of duty-free imports of European steel and aluminum into the U.S. Working with our European counterparts, we secured a deal that is protecting American jobs, avoids retaliatory tariffs, reduces inflation, and alleviates a major supply chain crunch by supporting increased steel and aluminum capacity here in the U.S. I know that the EU's 25% retaliatory tariffs on American-made boats was especially hard on your businesses, and I'm so pleased that the tariff was finally lifted on January 1st. I'm also excited about what the bipartisan infrastructure law means for our country. It's a huge win for American families, workers, and businesses, and will make America more competitive on the world stage through critical investments here at home. That includes $14 billion to improve and expand our ports. At the Commerce Department, we're incredibly grateful for funding for NOAA to increase climate resiliency and restore and improve coastal habitats. We also recognize that there's plenty of work to be done to strengthen our manufacturing economy and support American workers and businesses. I hope you'll view the Commerce Department as an ally and continue to communicate with us about your needs and concerns. Thank you again for inviting me to join you today, and thank you for your work to support America's manufacturing economy.
So as you can see and have heard, there's a lot for us to celebrate. But it's also important for us right now to guard against both hubris and complacency. And I remember there was a recent article where Bill Jurgen from CorrectCraft wrote about this, that we shouldn't get too comfortable with what's happened in the last 2 years. And this chart helps explain why, and you can see the last 2 years are on that chart. This is a 40-year trend of boat sales in the industry. And while the new boats declined, new RVs went from 100,000 units a year to 600,000 units a year. During this period, licensed drivers who should also be able to drive a boat have went from 140 million in America to 229 million in America. And during this period, America's total population rose from 227 million all the way to 329 million, 100 million new consumers, and we shrunk. We've not been tapping into that broader consumer pools that have been emerging over the last 40 years. But to me, this also says we have an enormous market opportunity to grow right now and expand the industry market share if we pivot and we begin to speak to audiences beyond ourselves. And there's a sense of urgency to updating this strategy right now because consumer spending on services, which just tanked during this recent period in the COVID session where you saw nobody going to international travel, nobody going to restaurants, nobody going out to Disney World and things like that. They're going to rebound. Every economist is talking about this right now. And that rebound will come out of the spikes that have happened in durable goods, us, and non-durable goods. We've grown, and we have to be honest with ourselves, we've grown because we've had less competition for our time, for the consumer's time, mind share, and dollar. And that competition is going to be coming back now as COVID spikes end, people start to go back outside, economies relax, and it's going to come back with a vengeance. But we've been preparing for this scenario, and we feel like we're ready. We've already covered how advocacy is playing a vital role in preserving and expanding the access so we can maintain our growth and momentum from that standpoint. But here's the rest of our plan, and it's this omni-channel strategy is really built entirely around Discover Boating. First, you're seeing it here this week, the launch of the Discover Boating Miami International Boat Show. Second, we're going to be refreshing Discover Boating across web, digital, and our boat shows. Third, we're going to be updating our aging consumer segmentation studies and then identifying the highest ROI emerging consumer markets, recruit influencers from these segments, and start to speak to them in the right way. Then we're going to update our annual Discover Boating campaign, which you'll see a part of today. And then we're going to be building out an industry-owned digital show guide, which was launched here, a beta here in Miami, to drive much greater lead generation right into our boat manufacturers and our members. And then we're going to rebrand all of the NMMA-owned boat shows under the Discover Boating brand in 2023. What this means is next year, every NMMA-owned show will be consistent and will be under the Discover Boating brand umbrella and will be loud and present in every consumer market. Discover Boating New York, Discover Boating Chicago, Discover Boating Boston, Discover Boating Atlantic City, and on and on. And the presence that we're showing here is really important because every one of you is amplifying that in your own messaging and inviting your customers. It's going to make Discover Boating the loudest campaign and industry campaign that exists in the country in any lifestyle, and particularly outdoor recreational lifestyle sector. And we're also driven by research that will show us the way. We're going to focus on the lifestyle, not about the specific boat. It's where the boat can take you. It's the experiences that people discover. It's about boating the verb, not boat the noun. And we're focusing the new campaign and new strategy on 3 core segments with the largest growth potential. Our traditional segment, which reflects the profile of the legacy boater we have right now. We won't forget our faithful customers and the families that have been driving growth. But from there, we will expand and double our focus on the next generation of boaters. This is a highly diverse, they're active segments, large segments with the largest potential for new market share penetration. And each of these market segments will be a top priority. They want to be boaters, and most importantly, every one of these can afford to be boaters. And you'll see this strategy across Discover Boating, in our consumer campaigns, all of our social media content, and across all of our boat shows as we invite these new consumers into Discover Boating around the country. Now, one of the things which was interesting when boaters showed pictures of themselves in our research, they didn't show us the boat. They showed photos of experiences, of the joys, the activities, the family, the people, the community, and the freedom that we offer as a community. Our new campaign is called See You Out Here, and it's an invitation to join us out. Discover Boating, all of the industry partners on the water, at our shows, in our boats, in a time when everyone in the country has been locked down, told what to do, told to mask up, stay home or stay away. We're flipping it, and we're inviting people to choose us, inviting them to come out and experience the joys of outdoor recreation and the lifestyle. We'll see you out here. We want to see you out here and here and here. And with that, I'd like to show a little video that'll give you a little more feel of what we're going to be producing this year across the entire country. So two final points. One, every one of those people that you just saw in there wasn't a single model, a single actor. Those were all real boaters. The diversity that you saw and that we're going to be pulling out of are the real stories that are out there that we're just not telling and we're not recognizing. Secondly, I just want to recognize Ellen Bradley, who's been leading this work, our Chief Brand Officer. She and Kevin Williams and the rest of the entire marketing and PR team have done just a terrific job, and I want to recognize them as well. So watch for this. It's an omni-channel strategy. You'll see it across all of our assets and throughout the year.